So here we go. We're looking at this right here. We are practicing for an IAB, which we will be working on. Oh, yes, it's working. Yay. So excited. Okay, so we are working on this IAB on Thursday. We are practicing reviewing some things before we take the IAB. Does anybody need a pencil before I get started? One second. Hand out. Pencil. Oh, you have one? I'm sorry about that. You should say yes, and I thought you were saying no, you're good. Did you not get a packet? Okay, so let's get started then. Question. Oh, sorry. You good? Very good. So we are doing some review of concepts that we've sort of been doing all year. Where we're talking today, primarily we're going to talk about this idea, this concept of slope. And slope, if we remember, talks about the steepness of a line. Okay? So we calculate our slope by writing it as a fraction of what over what? Very good. What were you thinking, Avery? Rise over run. Very good. Rise over run. So when you have a graph, how do we calculate our slope then? What do we have to do on that graph? Avery? Put in a slope triangle. Put in a slope triangle. And with that slope triangle, then what do we do? Billy? Very good. You count your rise boxes, you count your run boxes. You write it as a fraction of your rise over your run. Nice job. Very good job. And slope gives the direction of the line as well. So it tells me how many I'm moving up and over. It also tells me what direction I'm moving. Is it going up or is it going down? Because a positive slope is moving in what direction, left to right? A positive slope? It's moving up. Very good. So if I'm looking at a graph and I'm reading it left to right, like you would a book, and it's going up, it's positive. If you're reading it left to right and it's going down, then that is called a negative slope. You know that. That's not too bad. We remember that. Just for you. Very good. So, let me just grab my eraser. Because you have to erase it with your hand, and when it squeaks sometimes, so I just do it with a towel. It's not wet or anything, it's just a towel. So we have example 1 here. We are calculating the slope of this line. So what these pink and blue lines are on here, those are for, we were going to originally do it digitally, but you guys don't have access to the copy of it, so you're gonna draw them on with your pencils. So as I'm looking at this and I want to calculate the slope of this line, I need to find what? Like when I'm looking at this graph, I look for spots what? Olivia?
Where the line hits the box perfectly.
Where it hits 4 boxes perfectly. Good. Olivia, do you mind coming up and can you, let me change my color. Can you draw on here a point where the line hits 4 boxes perfectly? Let's see what she thinks, guys. Yeah, pencil. You gotta pick up a pen.
Oh my God, I feel like it works.
It should work. Did it work?
Yeah.
No. What? Oh, it did. Perfect. She said here. Do we agree?
But isn't that like the same thing right below?
No. If you look at the one below it, it hits right there. That's in between 2 boxes. You want where it hits 4 boxes perfectly. Very good, Olivia.
Oh, miss.
What?
What?
Do you want to come put another one? Go ahead.
Tell me this doesn't hit the same thing like this does? Right
It does. It does. So pick up the pen and put another point there.
I don't even know what I was looking at. Oh, I literally did it with my pen.
Oh, weird. Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Oh, that's
We have 2 points on here. Computers should be closed because we're not using them right now. Thank you. So we have 2 points here. I have to draw my slope triangle. I draw my slope triangle by bringing it down, bringing it over to create my slope triangle. What's my rise? What's my run? Avery.
4/2.
That's simplified, but if I'm looking at this slope triangle here, it would be 4 and 2. So a rise of 4, a run of 2. If I were to write it as a fraction of rise over run, what would my slope fraction be here? Bridget?
4/2.
4/2. When you look at that, do you see anything special? Or do you notice anything about it? Diego?
4 is bigger than 2.
4 is bigger than the 2, okay? So maybe it could go in and make it into like a mixed number and a mixed number. Olivia, what were you thinking?
I was gonna say that can be divided.
And what would you get?
2.
It simplifies to a 2, very good. So my slope for this one here, we had a bigger slope triangle, but it still simplifies to that 2. Awesome job, everybody. Very good. So draw that slope triangle in for me, please. Okay, very nice. I'm going to leave this up for a moment for you to get this written down, and then we're going to move on, and you're going to do the next one independently, and we're going to come back and go over those answers. Okay? I'm going to give 10 more seconds for people to write this down. Where's the button?
I want to go to the bathroom.
You have to fill out the pass thing. You know what I mean. Okay, here we go. Okay, that was slide number 3. We're looking at slide number 4. We have another line here. Before I have you draw your slope triangle, calculate your rise and run, what type of slope does this line have? Looking at it. Billy, what are you thinking?
Negative slope.
Why do we think it's negative?
Because it's going to left to right.
From left to right, it's going where? We always read lines left to right, it's going
Down.
down. Very good. So it's a negative slope. Good. Keep that in mind as you draw in your slope triangle. Calculate what's your rise, what's your run, and then figure out what your slope is. Do not get tricked. This one is a little bit of a trickster. Take a minute and a half right now to find your rise and your run, and then write that slope as a fraction.
Windows is Windows.
There's not, no, I don't see any notes. Draw yourself a slope triangle, and I gave you 2 points here. I gave you 2 points on the line. It shouldn't be too bad. Take another 2 seconds, and then I'm going to give you 10 more. If you don't, you're supposed to be taking out a piece of white line paper and drawing it on, writing it out on there. Obviously, you won't be able to do it with you won't be able to draw the graph, but you need to write answers down on white line paper. Take 5 more seconds to firm up those thoughts, please. 5 more seconds to firm up those thoughts, please. I need somebody who is willing to come up and write the rise and the run and draw it on my graph for me as well. Who's doing it? Who's being brave? Avery, help me out.
Wait, to draw everything?
Everything. All of it.
Yeah. Wait, even the divide?
Straight line down, which is it. And then connect it to the point that way. And we're going to count So you come down here. And you're gonna go over here. So it's right here, you're creating a triangle. And then you're counting what's your rise and what's your run. And you're gonna label it. Okay? So let's take a look at the triangle that Avery drew on here. Avery's is very small. Let's take a look at that more challenging one that they gave us. Because a lot of people said, hey, I have 2 points already drawn on here. I don't even need to do the work. You can take your pencil and draw your slope triangle like that. It's a little bit bigger, but it still represents the same slope triangle. If you did this bigger one here, what's the run here? Ellie? It's going left to right, so it's a +3. But your down is, your rise is how much? -6. So the down or the rise is the negative number. Okay? So Avery did it. She simplified it. She made a smaller slope triangle here. She said -2 and -1, -6. But we're moving left to right. So our run is always what type of number? We're always going to put it as a positive. So it's a +3. It's a positive, not a negative. Okay? So then if I write it as a fraction of rise over run, I get, help me correct this number we have up here. What would my rise or my run be? If I wrote it as a fraction. Bridget.
-6/3.
-6 over +3.
Yeah.
You want to remember because you're always going left to right. So it's always going to be positive. The run is always going to be positive. It's the rise that either will be positive or negative depending on which way you're moving, up or down. So when you do that division, what do you get when you simplify it? Olivia? -2. So our slope here is a -2. We can test it because we said, hey, it's going down, so it's negative. So if you do it out and you get a positive number, you know you maybe messed up somewhere. Okay? Does everyone see how we want to have positives versus negatives here? Okay. I'm just going to go like that. Okay, so let's get these written down, and we're going to look at the next piece together. In next piece, we're going to be talking about slope and y-intercept again, but this time we're going to be looking at equations as opposed to lines on a graph. Okay, so if we scooch down to slide number 5, or if you're on your page, I believe it's on like a next page. We're looking at the slope equation. We use this form, y equals mx plus b. And what did we say that m represented in the equation? Elizabeth?
The slope.
The slope. What's another word for our slope or phrase? We talk about slope, and another word that we use, or phrase we use instead of slope, is our
Constant rate of change.
very good. Our constant rate of change. And we write it as a fraction of what over what? Bridget?
Rise over run.
Rise over run. I wanted to review this because it's been a little bit since we've really focused only on slope and y-intercept. So when we talk about, so we say y equals mx plus b. So we always attach our slope to the x. Very good. And then we add our constant, which is our y-intercept. And where the y-intercept is where our line does what? Bridget?
Where our line meets the y-axis.
Very good. Where it hits the y-axis. equations using these three equations. So I want us to start, we're going to do one of these together, and then we're going to do two of them independently. We're going to start with the third one first. Okay? We have the equation y equals 4 minus, wait, no, that wasn't the one I wanted to do first. Okay. Yeah, we'll do the third one first. It's fine. Y equals 4 minus 10x. Oh, will you? Yes, because Alyssa came back. Fill out the past, okay? So it asks us what is the slope and what is the y-intercept. So if I look at this equation, I need to find out what my slope is. Looking at this equation, what's my slope here? Take a few seconds. Look at the equation. What is my slope here? Lily, what are we thinking our slope is going to be here? Oh, we're looking at the third one. I'm sorry. The 4. So she's saying our slope is that 4. Oh. Oh, now she's changing it to 10. Okay, so she's saying a slope of 10. And why did you change to the 10?
Because in the equation, the x is after the slope.
Oh, so you're looking for that number that's attached to it's your rate of change, which is attached to our x. Very good. Bridget, do you have anything you want to add and or change or have any questions?
I think it's a -10.
Oh, okay. So she's saying she believes it's a 10, but she's saying we want to modify it and say it's a -10. Why are we thinking it's going to be a -10, Bridge?
Because you're subtracting 4 from that 10.
Good, because that sign always gets paired with the number that comes behind it. So they stick together. The symbol that comes before the number is gonna stick with that 10. So it's a -10 for a slope. And then what's our y-intercept gonna be? Then, Jonah, what do you think, dude? We said the slope was -10. So what's my y-intercept? That number all by itself, saying it's a 4. Okay, so you said it's a 4. What do we think about the charge on that 4? Is it a positive or a negative? Melissa,
A positive.
why do you say positive?
Because there's no negative sign in front of it.
Very good. There is no negative sign in front of it, so it's automatically going to be positive. Very good. So we have a slope of -10 and a y-intercept of a +4. What I want you to do right now is I want you to take 2 minutes to list out the slope and the y-intercept for each one of these equations here. Refer back up to here and the example that we just did to help you out. Take 2 minutes right now. Think about, do we attach our x's to the slopes? Just asking us for a number. So if we look at this equation right there, our slope is always the number that's attached to our x. So if you're looking at this one here, what number is attached to your x in that equation?
5.
Nice job. So our slope is going to be 10. Nice job. So then our slope, our y-intercept, is just that number all by itself, no x attached to it. What's our y-intercept? Yes. So, taking what we just said here, looking at this guy here, what number's going to be slope there?
We're in here.
Yeah, this one. You're looking for the number that's attached to what?
150.
The slope is the constant rate.
Oh, no, 0.5.
Yeah, nice job, Isaiah. Okay, we're taking another 17 working seconds. And then our y-intercept is all by itself.
Negative.
Make sure you attach that sign. Careful, good. Nice job, dude. Awesome job, everybody. Take 10 more seconds, firm up those socks, and we're gonna come back together. Okay, 5 more seconds to firm up those socks. Oh no. I'm shoving that first one down. Let's take a look at that first one here. I'd say this one's probably like, of all three of these, he's the least worst. Let's say that. Okay, so we have y equals negative 5x plus 2. Okay, so first thing we need to do is identify our slope. We look for the number that's what? Oh, I should have underlined this whole thing. I don't know why I underlined just that part. What are we thinking, Avery? The number that's attached to the x. So what's our slope going to be for this first equation here? Rich?
-5.
Oh, she says -5. Okay. Haley B, do you agree or disagree with Bridget? Why is it -5 as opposed to just like a positive 5? Very good. Because that negative sign is attached to the number that comes behind it. Very good. So it is a -5. Remember, we don't write slopes as -5x. It's just a -5 because it's asking what's the number? 5. What is our, if we look at this first equation here, what's our y-intercept going to be? And what'd you get? Okay, so she says it's 2. Kaylee, what do you think? She agrees. Why is it 2 and not -2? Avery?
Because of the plus sign.
Because there's a plus sign, and the plus sign obviously means it's a positive number. Very good job. Awesome, awesome. Next one here, middle guy. Probably the trickiest of the 3, in my humble opinion. Let's take a look at our slope for this one that's in the center here. What's our slope going to be for this guy here? What do I think? Diego. 0.5. Okay. Isaiah, what do you think, dude? Do you agree? He said his slope was 0.5.
Yeah.
Isaiah agrees. And why? Oh, but it's not. This is like the order on this one's a little bit weird. Why is the slope 0.5? Olivia. Because it's attached to the x. Very good. So then what's my y-intercept going to be here? Oh my goodness. What's it going to be? Kaylee, help me out. Okay, so she says -3. Do we agree? Olivia's shaking her head. Yes, yes, yes. What do you think, Ethan?
I agree.
What were you going to say?
I wasn't sure if it was negative. I wasn't sure if that would be positive.
Yeah, because remember, signs are always attached to the numbers that come right behind them. Even if it's a slope, it's still attached. That number comes directly behind it. Good question there. Good sort of like, not 100% sure. I love that. Does anyone have questions about this guy here?
No.
This guy was probably, I think it was pretty tricky. You thought it was easy?
If you have basic literature skills, those are pretty easy.
Well, I mean, some of these are in different orders. Like we have the slope in a different spot. So,
But no matter what, if the slope is always going to be the one attached to the x, and the y is always going to be.
Yeah, that kind of helps it a little bit.
it's a good thing to remember, right? Because slopes, no matter the order, the slope is always going to be that number that's attached to our x. And then our constant or our y-intercept is always going to be that number all by itself, nothing else attached to it. Nice, good point there to make, Bridget. It was a good thing to notice there. Okay, very nice job, everybody, on that one. Let's skedaddle down to slide number 6. If you're in it's right at the bottom of that page if you're in your packet there. Okay, so now we're writing an equation using the following set of numbers. When we talk about equations, We write them in the form of what equals what, and what. How do we write it? Olivia.
Y equals
Mx plus b. Oh, that's not the best handwriting there. Y equals mx plus b. I clicked it by accident with the rag because I went too fast. Okay, so m is our
D.
slope. M is our b. There are two different numbers.
No, you said MSR. I had to end it with
No, I
D.
said m is our slope. B is our y-intercept. Very good.
You're smart.
I'm smart too.
We're good. We got this. Okay, so it says write the equation using the following set of numbers. The first one has a slope of 4 and a y-intercept of -2. I'm going to write this one together, and then you're going to do the next two independently. Actually, let's do. No, we're going to do the first one first. I start with what when I write an equation? Always start with a. What's the button?
Y equals.
Y equals. Very good. So y equals mx plus b, and now using what we know, what's the next, the right side of our equation going to look like? Bridget?
4x minus 2.
Okay, so she says 4x. And why did you put the 4 attached to the x?
Because that's our slope, and the slope's always going to be attached to the x.
Very good. So it's 4x because our slope is always going to be attached to our x here. Good. And then she said -2. Oh, goodness. Why is she -2? Haley D? Because it's a -2. Very good. So we said y equals 4x minus 2 because, and we said -2 because the y-intercept is a -2. Good. Now what I want you to do is I want you to take 2 minutes right now to write the next two equations using these two sets of information here, using this equation as a mold. Okay? I want you to take 2 minutes right now. Go ahead and give it a go. Hey. You could do that, yeah. Here, it's still. Next to you, you switch the order. Still, as long as you keep the signs the same. Okay, so you get this. Okay. I was gonna talk about.
Did you already do this?
I was bored. I go to work, so technically. That was good so far here.
Let's go.
Y equals mx plus b, right? M is our slope. Oh, give it a shot. How you doing?
Huh?
Okay. Where do y equals?
Oh, wait.
Y equals. Nice. Yeah, I thought I was gonna chip you with the last one. Nice. So we always attach our what to our x.
The teacher.
Good one, third, yes. Very good. What's up, Harry? Okay, we're taking 30 more seconds. I'm actually only gonna take like 15 more seconds because I want to get moving, but you're doing great. Very good. Okay. Ooh, I'm gonna take a look at that last one. The last one's kind of tricky. It could be a little bit of a trickster. Little bit of a trickster. Whoa. Very good. Okay, let's take a look. Here we go. Okay. Very good. So we're using the form y equals mx plus b, m being our slope, b being our y-intercept. We know this, we've talked about this. Let's write the second equation here. We start with y equals, nice job, thank you very much. y equals, okay? And then mx plus b, so then the right side is gonna look like what? We could have written it two different ways, Billy.
I put y equals negative 1/3 x plus 9.
Okay? Negative 1/3 x plus 9. So why did we attach the negative 1/3 to the x? Avery?
Because negative 1/3 is slope.
Very good. And slope is attached to our x. Very good. You could have also written it. I saw a bunch of people write it this way, and it means the same thing. Y equals 9 minus 1/3 x. I know Billy wrote it that way. I know Olivia wrote it that way. I know Isaiah wrote it that way. Both of those mean the same thing, because when you keep the sign, as long as the value is the same, we can switch the order of things. Very nice, very nice. Okay, last one here was a little bit of a trickster. What did we think for this equation for this guy here? Bridget, help me out.
Y equals 0x.
Y equals 0x, okay?
Minus 2.
And then she said minus 2. Okay? What do we think? Alice Button.
I agree, but I didn't add the 0. I just put a.
So,
Yeah, I do too.
oh, but remember, when it's an x by itself, that doesn't mean,
Zero.
an x by itself does not mean
not a
0x, it means how many x's? It means a 1x.
That's
So we can't just write it as an x. We could simplify it though, and we could write it as y is equal to, because that cancels out, negative 2. That's how you could simplify it, but that's not, that doesn't go with how we did it here, so I'm not gonna write that. But if you wrote y equals negative 2, then you wouldn't be wrong. Okay, let's make sure our computers are closed because we don't need them right now. And we're finishing up strong with this last slide here. Does anybody have any questions about this guy here? This guy was probably the trickiest of the tricksters.
the blank stuff.
What?
You reported it, right?
This guy. We'll put it in the wrong direction. Sorry about that. Okay, last one. This is a completely independent activity. We're going to look at the last slide here, slide number 7, where it asks you, you have a graph. It asks you to do a couple things. We're putting everything together. Regrow. Okay? We need to, number 1, find the slope of this line. Number 2, find the y-intercept of this line. And then number 3, create an equation. So, my question before I have you get started working. You're looking at this line in the direction that it's moving. What kind of slope is this going to have so that you can test it afterwards? Be like, am I right? Diego.
It has 2 ways with this one, by the way.
Huh?
That's moving up.
It's moving
and
up.
down. But look at the arrow below.
No. As you read it left to right. As you read it left to right, it's going what direction? Up. So it's positive. Okay, so your slope should be a positive number. Okay, here we go. I want you to take 2.5 minutes right now. 2. First, find the slope. You might have to draw a slope triangle in. Label your rise and your run. Then tell me, where does it hit the y-axis? Y-intercept. And then put the whole thing together into an equation using this guy as form. Okay, here we go. The timer is more for me than it is for you guys. Nice job. Like that's it. We're gonna slope it in half. Nice job. Big slope that you have to draw the line. Let's slope. Right. Okay, and then we write the run. And write it. Think about where it's riding along now. Nice job. There's 2 points already gone. Slope triangle. Okay, how many lines? How many do you want?
Hmm? That's right. It's right?
Yeah. When you write it as needed, I trust needed. you could also do it as needed. Well, it's right, it means the same thing. You blow it up, come on. No, it's not proper. Blow it up. No, why?
Easy ball. Why should the American go?
Julie Prescott, please call extension 3211.
Silver? Not silver.
Here we go. Here we go. It's a positive slope. So we remember because it's going up, it's going to be positive. So we have to calculate our slope here. You had to draw in a slope triangle. If we look at it, we had 2 points that were given to us because they were very kind.
Why did I do that in the other side?
What's our,
I did it higher.
oh, that's okay. You could have done it here. As long as you're hitting 4 boxes perfectly, it doesn't matter where on the line you draw because it'll always be the same. What's my rise? What's my run? Bridge.
Rise is 2, run is 1.
Very good. So if I write it as a slope fraction in this box over here, it's going to be what over what? Rise over run. What did we say our rise was, Isaiah? 2 over. Very good. Nice job. 2 over 1. Rock star move. 2 over 1. Very nice. And then we need our y-intercept. That's where our line does what? Hits the y-axis. Where does it hit the y-axis? It hits at, if you follow it down,
Puerto Rico.
that point right there, it hits the y-axis right there on that blue point. That is the number -2. Very good. Now we put it all together. Put it all together and create an equation of y equals what? Whoa. Wait. Who can raise their hand and tell me what the equation would be? Olivia. Y equals 2x. Some people wrote it as 2 over 1. That means the same thing. 2 over 1x and then -2. I saw a couple people, Harry included, wrote it and it means the same way. It means the same thing. Y equals 2x plus -2. If you wrote it as plus negative, that means the same thing. Both of those are correct. Okay? So let me go over homework before we go down for our math break. Okay? Homework for this evening. By the end of the day today, everybody needs to have 10 minutes, and we're not going to do the last page. It got messed up. We're not going to do that. Homework for this evening. You need 10 minutes in on Alice. I gave an assignment of 60 minutes for the week. I'm going to go through and I'm going to check to make sure that you have 10 minutes completed for today. So you need to have 10 minutes done. Many people got it done during the CCR, so that's good. You don't need to do any homework then. If you didn't get a chance to finish it during CCR, that needs to be completed for homework this evening. Does anybody have any questions for me? Olivia?
Can you just turn the slide on?
Yes, I was going to say that next.